Here comes the fun part. Let me rearrange the window, at least try to do that a little bit. There we go. We're going to start from the boring things. For example, let's configure this link right here between router 2 and router 1. Yeah, this is going to be tricky. No, we're getting this message because we rebooted the routers in order to insert that serial links module. Enable configure terminal, and then I'm going to say hostname router 2. And this router is DCE. So when I open serial 000, I'm going to say clock rate for 000,000. Okay, added one extra zero. So you need 6 zeros. And then IP address 192.168.101, 255.255.255.252, and then no shutdown. That's pretty much it for router 2. Now the majority of configuration is going to be done on router 1. No, enable configure terminal, host name, and then interface serial 000, IP address 192.168.103. Right, we used 1. What am I doing? No. Okay, changing this part from 3 to 2. That's right. Okay, it's a bit tricky to look at this way. So these are the commands I used so far on router 1, host name, interface serial 000, and then IP address. And then our next task is to configure a router on a stick on router 1. That is a typical router on a stick configuration. We want to switch on the physical interface. We used fast Ethernet 0/1, I believe. Let's check. Yeah, I haven't labeled that. See what happens when you don't label things. 0/1. And then I'm going to say no shutdown. You can type that in capital letters as well, obviously. And then I want to create these virtual interfaces, one virtual interface for each VLAN. So I'm going to say interface fast Ethernet 0/1.2, and then encapsulation .1q2, and then IP address 192.168.1, and then 255.255.255.0, and that's it. Moving on to the next virtual interface, fast Ethernet 0/1.3, encapsulation .1q3, IP address 192.168.3.1, 255.255.255.0. That's it for router on a stick configuration. Now we need to configure DHCP for these two VLANs. First, I would like to exclude the first 10 IP addresses, just so we don't have any conflicts, because the IP phones tend to be a bit messy when registering with DHCP. So I'm just going to say IP DHCP excluded address from 192.168.2.0 to 192.168.2.10. And then I'm going to do a similar thing for VLAN 3. Just please make sure to change both of these values, because if you, for example, change only this one, you're going to block all IP addresses from 2.0 to 3.10. So you won't be able to use any IP from VLAN 2. I have a reason for saying this, by the way, because my students used to do it all the time. So that's that. Okay, IP DHCP pool, and I'm going to name this data VLAN2 because that's what VLAN2 will be used for. And then I'm going to say network. That's the pool, 192.168.2.0 mask. And then default router, 192.168.2.1. That's it for VLAN 2, creating the pool for VLAN 3. I'm going to name it VoIP v3. And then we want to define the pool 192.168.3.0.255.255.255.0, default router 192.168.3.1. And here, since this is the VoIP DHCP pool, we have one additional command that you haven't seen before. It's called option 150 IP 192.168.3.1. And what this command does is it tells the VoIP devices the TFTP server address, which is located on router 1 in this case, because that's going to be our Cisco call manager. But yeah, I'm about to show you what Cisco Call Manager means and how to configure that, so stick around. To start the configuration of Cisco Call Manager, you want to say telephony service, and this is not supported on all the routers that you can choose here. So yeah, just so you know that it's not supported on all routers. That's why I picked 2811, because I know for a fact that it supports telephony service. The first command I'm going to use is max ephones, and I'm going to say 4. And what this command does is it limits the number of phones as in devices. And then there is this command max dn4, because we have 4 physical phones, and I'm going to also say we should have maximum of 4 phone numbers. So that's what this command means. This is limiting the number of phone numbers that this call manager can issue to VoIP devices or any device that wants to register a phone number in this network. And then I want to say IP source address 192.168.3.1 port 200. This command tells that device where to register. And then I also want to use auto assign 1 to 4. This command gives phone MAC addresses, that's how it tracks the devices, the right to use a phone number, pretty much. Now it's time to exit this telephony service configuration mode and start assigning the phone numbers to the phones. So I'm going to say ephone DN number 1, and I'm just going to say number, and I'm going to give them some simple numbers such as 101, and then ephone DN2 is going to be number 102, and then ephone DN3 is going to be number 103. ephone DN4 is going to be number 104. Now comes a very important part, and that is the configuration of the switch. But I can see that this link here is still down. I probably forgot to switch it on, so let me try that before I start any troubleshooting. No shutdown. Yep, that was it. Okay. moving on to the switch now. So remember that we have already configured router on a stick on router 1, and whenever we do that, we should configure the interface on the switch connecting to that interface where router on the stick is configured. We should configure that interface, that switch interface, to be trunk. So that's the very first thing we're going to do here. I'm going to try doing this like this because I do want to see this part of the network. Okay. Enable configure terminal, hostname switch 1, interface, whoops, fast Ethernet 0/1 is switch port mode trunk. And then fast Ethernet 0/2, as we can see, we want to use both VLANs here. So I'm going to say switch port mode access and then switch port access VLAN 2. And then I want to add switch port voice VLAN 3. So that's a new command, switch port voice. If I just said switch port access VLAN 3, this would change into 3. So because you can't have two access VLANs. You can have one VLAN and then you can have one voice VLAN, and that's it. Okay, that's it for fast Ethernet 0/2. Fast Ethernet 0/3 is only the voice VLAN, and I'm gonna say switch port mode access and then switch port voice VLAN 3. Interface fast Ethernet 0/4 is the same as fast Ethernet 0/2. I want to say switch port mode access, switch port access VLAN 2, and then switch port voice VLAN 3. Interface fast Ethernet 0/5 only has voice, so I'm going to say switch port mode access, switch port voice VLAN 3. Interface fast Ethernet 0/6 only has data, so I'm going to say switch port mode access, switch port access VLAN 2. That should be it. I'm going to switch on these phones. The way you do that is actually pretty funny. You need to drag this power charger into the phone. So let's do that, and then the phone will start to register. As you can see here, I'm going to try to fast forward this a bit. All right, we have time to wait for it, so I'm going to do the same thing on the other phone, and I'll continue with that later. What I want to do now is I want to configure static routes, which is one of our tasks. The only route we need here is on router 2, because router 2 needs to have information on these networks right here, and I'm just going to add a default route. Enable configure terminal IP route 0000/0000, and then serial 000 as well, and not the next hop IP. And that's it. The only remaining task for us would be to configure the endpoint devices. We've already started to do that with configuring the phones, and you can see here that we already got a phone number 101. That's the first phone that asked for a number, so it got 101, and then the second one was 102. And then I want to also check the other devices. Here we got an IP address from DHCP. Let's go to the Cisco IP Communicator app. Remember how we set up that option for TFTP server? Well, that's only for the IP phones. Since this is a different app, I guess that's why it doesn't work. We want to say which TFTP server to use to this phone. So it's going to have to be manual 192.168.3.1. Okay. And instantly it got a number, which is a good sign. And then what else? We need to configure this one. Configuration, settings. Here as well, I'm gonna just give it the IP address of the call manager, 168.3.1, and that's it. Right, the PC probably doesn't have DHCP set up, so let's do that. And then the laptop, same thing. So I want to check. Okay. Line number not set. This is 103. It got an IP address, that's fine. This one also got an IP address from VLAN 2, that's good news. PC also got an IP address from VLAN 2. So we're pretty happy with that. I'm going to try and call one of these IP phones from our smartphone Cisco Communicator app. In order to do that, I want to say 101 and then press dial. And then I think this one has that. Whoa! There you go. Isn't that quite a simulation? Okay, and then you answer the phone by clicking here, and now we're connected. And then when you click here, you end the phone call. Yeah. All right, let me also try some basic communication tests just to make sure the other things are working as well. Yep, that's successful. This one is going through a phone, so that's important to test, and that's successful. That's it for VoIP. There's plenty of other components here, but it would take an eternity to test all of that. So I definitely encourage you to try. These ones are especially interesting. Okay, see you in the next exercise.